We will now need to study the wealth of information in order to prepare ourselves for the next meeting of the PrepCon, which will start in March next year. We certainly hope to continue to make good progress, as we are now at the halfway point in the preparatory process. Mr. President, on May 2nd of this year, the Pacific celebrated World Tuna Day here at the United Nations. Tuna is an important part of our life in the Pacific. It provides employment, food security, and many other benefits. In fact, many people in our region have a spiritual connection to tuna. It is therefore only logical that the United Nations would recognize the importance of the day, and we are looking forward to have the draft resolution A/721/L27 later today. So far, over 90 countries have sponsored the draft. We thank them for their support, and we invite everyone else who hasn't done so to join us. In June, the informal consultative process examined marine debris, plastics, and microplastics. The discussion was both timely and comprehensive, looking at the scale of the problem, but also at a comprehensive set of solutions from prevention to removal. We welcome the report, the co-chairs on its work and its place within this year's omnibus resolution. We also welcome the renewed mandate for the informal consultative process, and that it will focus on the interaction of oceans and climate change next year. In August, we stressed the importance of the successful implementation of the second cycle of the regular process. It is essential that science underpins policy decision-making on oceans and fisheries issues. The process here at the UN for obtaining the best available science is the development of the World Ocean Assessment. We welcome the decisions taken on the scope and the duration of the second cycle. Mr. President, in September, we finished the modalities for the United Nations Conference to support the implementation of SDG 14, which will be co-hosted by Fiji and Sweden in New York during the week of the World Oceans Day next year. We welcome the appointment of the distinguished permanent representatives of Portugal and Singapore to facilitate the preparations, and we look forward to working closely with them. The concise call to action will set the tone of our work, but the real success of the conference will depend on the partnership dialogues. All stakeholders, states, IGOs, private sector, and civil society are called to contribute to this success and to further the agenda by committing themselves to fully implementing SDG 48. We will all need to accelerate and strengthen commitments we have already undertaken and to put new ones on the table. A healthy, productive, and resilient ocean is the key to the future of our blue planet. Given the vastness of the Pacific Ocean, we have always seen ourselves as custodians in protecting and sustainably using our ocean. At the 47th Pacific Islands Forum, held earlier this year in my country, our leaders adopted the Pohnpei Ocean Statement, a course to sustainability. The theme reinforces the inseparable link between our ocean, seas, and the Pacific Island peoples, and their values, traditional practices, and spiritual connections. In this regard, the Pacific will continue to advocate for a healthy, productive, and resilient ocean here at the United Nations. We see this to contribute to our efforts to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. In closing, I want to thank all that have contributed and support these processes. Thank you, Mr. President.
And I thank the distinguished representative of Micro pleasure speaking on behalf of Pacific Islands Forum, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Australia.
Mr. President, Excellencies and distinguished delegations, it gives me great pleasure to reflect on the very busy year that was for Oceans and Law of the Sea, and as we've just heard from the PIF Chair, who has run through a range of key meetings and events, this is just a summary of what we've achieved over the year. Collectively, we have made positive progress in discussions on a legally binding instrument on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, under the skillful guidance of Ambassador Eden Charles of Trinidad and Tobago, acknowledged by others. The informal consultative process discussed the extent of the challenges posed by marine debris, plastics and microplastics, but also importantly explored options for working together at all levels to address these challenges. In fisheries, we considered progress in the implementation of the UN Fish Stocks Agreement through the review conference and implementation of the UN General Assembly bottom fishing measures as set out in General Assembly Resolution 6472 and Resolution 66/68. The annual Oceans Omnibus and Sustainable Fisheries Resolutions provided a forum to reflect on all of these issues and on other developments in the law of the sea. We found discussions rich and productive, chaired respectively by the very capable Mr. Tambili Joyini of South Africa and Mr. Andreas Motsveldkavik of Norway. Australia is pleased to co-sponsor both resolutions, noting our particular interest as an island nation in the protection and sustainable use of the ocean and its resources. Australia welcomes the continued recognition of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, as setting out the legal framework within which all activities in the oceans and seas must be carried out. UNCLOS is of central strategic importance as the basis for national, regional and global action and cooperation in the marine sector. In turn, it underpins trade between nations and supports economic growth. With over 160 states parties, UNCLOS is one of the most widely subscribed agreements in modern international legal and diplomatic history. It is vital that the integrity of the Convention be preserved, and it is appropriate that the Oceans Omnibus Resolution continue to reflect the universal and unified character of UNCLOS. Separately, we thank states for supporting text proposed by Australia on illicit wildlife trafficking in the context of the Oceans Omnibus Resolution. This text provides further recognition of the serious and growing problem of illicit wildlife trafficking and of the need for enhanced regional and global cooperation and coordination of the response. An effective response requires coordinated international action, and we are pleased that the Oceans Resolution highlights in this regard the relevance of the UN Convention against Transnational Organised Crime, the UN Convention against Corruption, and the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wildlife, Fauna and Flora. We are also pleased that this year's Oceans Resolution includes a reference to the vital role played by coastal blue carbon ecosystems in climate adaptation and mitigation. Blue carbon ecosystems are some of the most threatened in the world, and there is an urgent need to work together to both protect and restore them. To this end, Australia announced at the Paris Climate Change Conference in 2015 that we were establishing an international partnership for blue carbon. In recent months, we have been delighted to welcome new members: France, the US, UAE, Sierra Leone, and the Nature Conservancy. At the recent Climate Change Conference in Marrakesh, Australia also announced with France a new plan of action for International Coral Reef Initiative, ICRI, recognising the impact of recent global bleaching events on the world coral reef, including Australia's own Great Barrier Reef. The plan gives ICRI an enhanced focus on climate change, including the role that coral reefs and related coastal blue carbon ecosystems can play in climate adaptation and mitigation. We look forward to continuing to work together to ensure the health, sustainability and security of our oceans. Thank you, Mr. President.
And I thank the distinguished representative of Australia. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Maldives.